This is the Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, the game, complete edition. This is the return of the once delisted arcade brawling title. It very much is something that throws back to old school fighting games, and it has a host of extra features such as these game modes that I'm showing right here. Of course, all of the content, everything is available now to be played locally or online for 3 players if you'd like to jump in with others. And it's a kind of an interesting fighting game because I hadn't previously played it before. I missed out on it. Big fan of the movie. This is obviously more based on the actual, I guess you could say source material from the comics, which I have kind of read into online but haven't actually witnessed myself. But yeah, it's kind of interesting. It tells the story of Scott Pilgrim fighting back against the League of Evil Exes. And there is also the element of RPG mechanics. It's got an interesting story, multiple endings, so you can technically replay it a bunch of times if you'd like to. And yeah, it's kind of a neat game. Now, I did have some issues with it just in regards to the difficulty. It's a very brutally difficult game, that's for sure. Now, with that, and they don't really tell you this, I guess there is like a tips option that you can select in the menu that'll kind of maybe help you out a little bit. But you actually need to level up your character. There's like an RPG system in here. Yeah, I know, right? A Ubisoft game with some RPG mechanics. What a shocker. Anyways, so in this you actually have to kind of level up your character. You have to go to the different shops and you need to buy stuff. You don't really get told this, so you have to actually do some research into it. I say get the bionic arm. I bought 2 of those, and that basically increases your strength. So you got like no strength. Then you go, you buy the bionic arm, it's 50 strength, you get 2 of them, 100 strength, and you gotta buy other things from different shops. There's like a shopping district you can go to, and you go in there and you buy these things and increase your strength, give you more XP, and you improve your character in order to handle situations. But even then, it still can be brutally difficult. The levels themselves aren't too bad, I didn't have too much trouble with them, but the end boss is just insane. Some of the bosses that you fight are a little bit crazy too. And it's just kind of weird because they don't really tell you these things, and you get to this level right here, and it just feels like the biggest pain. It's like, what am I doing? You don't really get any direction. You actually have to I had to look into it. And I guess it's a throwback to older style games of this genre where you don't get really told things, and there's secrets you can find and other things you can discover, which is really cool. The hyper speed highways and everything like that are kind of neat little spots or bonuses. But you got this money system, and it's like a passive thing. So you can go in here, you can get your coins, and you get enough of them, you can just exit to the world map, and then you can go and buy stuff. You don't have to finish the level. It's interesting because a lot of people probably, I don't know, maybe some won't mention specifically that it does feel grindy. I don't like these types of grinding games where I have to replay a level multiple times in order to be able to actually go and get something to beat said level. It doesn't really make sense to me in the brawler genre. It's an interesting concept. And I guess you could go and play side stuff to, kind of get that level and, get those extra points. It's just kind of like I was expecting more of an easygoing, brawling time where you just kind of enjoy the story and have a little bit of fun with it. There are difficulty options, but even then, it's just brutal across them no matter what you're picking. It's just a bit odd that this type of game would have that sort of setup to it, and almost a little bit disappointing to me because I do think this game is actually fairly well done. You get a decent selection of levels. It looks gorgeous, visually, and the aesthetics of the pixel style of the artwork is just fantastic. The sprite work here, it really is just amazing. And then also the responsiveness, the different combos, the different moves you can pull off. I didn't find that the blocking or the parry ever worked in this one. You never really seemed to actually deflect enemy hits. And if I did, it was just complete luck. And then it's got some neat mechanics for getting yourself back up off the ground, and it looks really cool. Decent selection of enemies. They've all got different move sets, different damage sets. You get, of course, the different bosses. The levels are fairly similar, and it's the selection of them. You do some stuff, fight something, do some stuff, fight a boss, and then you move on. Get a little bit of a story cinematic that kind of just paints a quick picture of what's going on in the background, and then that's kind of it. But you can, of course, go and play the different characters and get different scenarios in regards to how things kind of wrap up, which is kind of neat. So you play knives, and you can have the different members of the group, the band, and all that. It's kind of it's interesting, right? There's different options, and of course lots of little hidden things. So you got to actually look around at the environment to find stuff. And they got neat enemies. Some of them are really annoying, I guess it really depends on what you sort of end up with in regards to, kind of moving through the areas and what you have to fight. You can kind of prepare, I guess. It's just kind of, I don't know, it can be a little exhausting at times, which is fine. It's a brawler game. I just didn't expect something so, like, brutally difficult in regards to what this is. And I think a lot of people might jump into this for the first time and be really confused as to specifically what you're doing when you're trying to play the game. And I think that is a big issue that maybe could have been more clearly presented to people, because there's going to be a lot of folks checking this out for the first time, because it really has gotten quite a bit of praise, a little bit more than maybe it should, I guess. I don't know. Like, I think it's a pretty good game. I did like the concept of it. I just didn't really have fun playing it, which was a bit of a shame, because I do enjoy, this universe, the movie too, quite a bit. And yeah, it just feels like a real grind. I was like, I was having fun. I was like, oh, there's a good challenge edge. You do a few levels. It's not too hard, but I could see where you could have some difficulty. And then you keep playing, and you're like, wow, these guys are just absolutely taking it to me. And then you get to the boss fight, and it's just this long, like, the end boss fight is just nuts. Like, the tiers and the layerings of it. It's kind of crazy unless you've really spent the time, sort of leveling up your character. And I guess that's where you get the value of, your gameplay time. But I would have rather had the value of the playtime being me specifically going and, like, replaying the different characters, as opposed to it being grind every little character in order to, kind of really witness things. And I think that's a bit odd. But it does have really cool, again, environments. Every setting, every little area you go to is entirely different. And then you get all these smaller things, in the backdrop. Like, obviously, in the foreground, there's all the fighting, the different enemies that we've mentioned, some of the bosses. But then in the background, you have a character who's moving, you have different actions going on, there's all this sort of quirky, weird stuff, and it's kind of charming and fun. I think, when it comes to the atmosphere and the look of the world kind of surrounding the character, they did an absolutely fantastic job. They really nailed the weird cartoon, I guess, comic-esque Toronto area, which is kind of fun. Magical land of Toronto, Canada. Anyways, it's just kind of a neat setting. It's a neat game. I think some folks would really like what this provides. I think if you're coming back for nostalgia and stuff, you'll have a really good time. If you loved it the first time, you're going to really enjoy having everything all cleaned up and looking sharp and clean. And yeah, it was generally just quite enjoyable, I wouldn't say it was enjoyable, but, it's a good game. It's well done. If you like the grind and everything like that, I think it delivers on what you're possibly looking for in this type of game, and you'll probably have a good time rolling through it and battling as Scott Pilgrim and the others.